Blasted bot! Brennock should have been back by now. Jaimez. Listener lost. It's always one thing after another down here. Blast it all! Brennock and I were on our way to Shadowvane Point to conduct a recitation ceremony. We were attacked by scorpids. Now the hauler is scorpid stinger lodged in its gears, and Brennock wandered off. He said he was going to stretch his legs while I fixed the hauler, but that was a while ago. I need you to get the bot moving again. I need to get the bot moving again. Can you go look for him? I'd love a Naru family tree, to be honest, because I think there's a chance that it could be pretty interesting. I mean, Zira's referred to as the Light Mother. I mean, that's kind of crazy, and when they say Zira's line, it sure makes it sound like she has, like, sired Naru children or something. It's fucking weird. No, my book! What have they done? Years of work carried off by animals. You don't understand, I was gonna leave the Ringing Deeps, but I can't now. Not without my book. Concept art for Lura has those eyes? Interesting. Why do you want to leave? Hello, Vixen. So many come to me to entrust stories or ask questions. I try to answer well, but I don't really know. I could describe the sun 100 ways, but to me it's less real than a candle's flame. My stories matter, I know that. I keep memories alive that would otherwise pass into nothing. But they're all as much as shadows trickling down the cenotes. I want to see the real thing. I want to bring back new stories, not just retell old ones. I want my oath to grow, not stagnate. What the fuck are these dialogue bits from these random ass characters? I could describe the sun 100 ways, but to me it's less real than a candle's flame. My stories matter, I know that. I keep memories alive that would otherwise pass into nothing, but they're all as much as shadows trickling down the cenotes. I want to bring back new stories, not just retell old ones. I want my oath to grow, not stagnate. Did Jaimez send you? This is important, I can't go back yet. Defragmenting memory. My oath is to be a compiler. I collect and tell stories of our people. Brennock sighs. Is there wisdom in stories told by someone who never lived them? I've never had an adventure. I was afraid to overwrite the stories entrusted to me. So I started transcribing them into a book I hid here. Each time we returned to Shadowvane Point, I added more. I was going to leave and pass on the book, but Scorpids ransacked it. Please, find the missing pages before they stuff them into their nests. Is there wisdom in stories told by someone who never lived them? Dude, these side quests. I won't be like the Unbound. My stories are my oath, and they must be passed on. I need my book whole. Okay, Norganon. I'll go find your discs. Is there wisdom in telling stories that I was not there to live, that I never lived? Is the void more like purgatory? I'm always so conflicted on the void. It could be what it appears to be at face value, or it could be something very different. There's lots of interpretations to the void, which is part of what makes it so interesting to me. Glimmering crystal. Seeing the unseen. Ethereal vision. I don't know what this buff is for. Disturbed Earth. Gloom Fathom Hide. An immensely sturdy hide from an animal you're unable to identify. Gloom Fathom. Oblivion, a state of permanent unconsciousness existing after death. Interesting definition. I like to focus on the potential aspect of Void. Void is rapacious in nature, greedy to fulfill its potential, which is why it hungers. The manic desire to see all potential fulfilled drives itself, and those exposed to it to madness. I think all of Void can be defined by exploring the concept of potential. I would agree, even in the capacity of potential energy and stuff like that. And remember, the Void tells Illyria to kill Sylvanas because she seeks the death of all things, of all possibilities, which pretty directly implies that the Void sees mortal life as conduits for possibility and occurrence. Well, all life, potentially. That life is the vessel, or essentially the vessels through which the visions of the Void become true. Can all forces be used for good? Oh, I think there are some forces that are extremely difficult to use for good, like domination, for instance. Pretty fucking terribly evil magic, you know? Just like really hard to justify. But it depends, I guess. You could come up with a scenario where it's benevolent to use it, I suppose. If the Titans are doing it because they're trying to stop Sargeras from ending the fucking universe, I think that's kind of benevolent, but that's not how I think they've used it. What do you think this quest is a fractal reference for? Stories not being experienced by the ones who tell it? I guess my interpretation of it, to a degree, is that there is still wisdom in telling stories that we weren't around for. I guess it's when we add embellishments and we start adding things to it. But one of the things with stories is that sometimes we derive our own meaning. Sometimes what we derive from it is not the intended original meaning. So I think that this is an interesting concept. I really feel like when it comes to defragmenting memory, recording stories, retelling them, this really makes me think Norganon. You know? This guy's even got purple eyes and stuff. Brennock. I mean, I don't know. I really do think, like, history keeper, record keeper. I don't know. It kind of makes me think of, like, Chronicle and stuff. I think about this stuff on like a strangely meta level where I'm like sitting there thinking like, maybe the stories told in Chronicle, some of them, while maybe they weren't lived through, perhaps there's wisdom in them. Perhaps there's something to be derived there. But then again, what I was really going for there was more that like stories change over time, and sometimes there are amendments to those stories. Sometimes different interpretations that change the meaning of those stories. And so this guy here is talking about wanting to write his own stories, not just retelling the same ones over and over. And I get that. I guess my own philosophy is that even in seeking to tell new stories, you're kind of inevitably telling old stories too. Even if you don't realize it, it doesn't mean that you're telling the same old story. It's a new story. But it doesn't mean that it's not closer to older things than you realize. History tends to not perfectly repeat itself, but it tends to rhyme. It tends to rhyme. So similar, but not quite exactly the same. I mean, Priest had the spell Dominate Mind, and hasn't Light recently had something come up about someone who seems pure of heart, could be thinking they're doing it of their own accord when it might actually be the Light pulling the strings? No, I don't believe that's a thing. That's not what is said. What I think you're referring to is Chronicle Volume 4, referencing the fact that if someone has a deep enough connection with the Light and has a pure enough heart and, you know, intentions, that even if they're being mind controlled by something like domination, that purity of heart and light connection can actually mask that they're being dominated. Which in the case of Anduin, I think this is a fractal type of situation. When Anduin stabs Carestia, that is intentionally made to be very similar to Sargeras stabbing our world. And it wasn't until Chronicle Volume 4 that anything like that had ever been said. But I remember watching that fucking cutscene and thinking, why is Anduin clearly dominated, but he's not visually dominated? Why is that happening? And I really think they're trying to make you think about Sargeras in the Pantheon, where he has a beam of order fueled by a Death Titan that is a literal construct of control and gating that the Titans are actively using on him as he stabs our planet. That is fucking insane. All the while, Sargeras, for the most part, does not look dominated. But just like Anduin Wrynn, in his cutscene where he stabs Carestia, he has that brief moment of, what the fuck have I just done? Like that look of horror or shock. There's even a part when he's raising the sword where his face almost like twitches awkwardly, almost like he looks like he's trying to resist what is happening. Which really changes the perspective of what the fuck is going on. And if Sargeras is a fractal for someone like Anduin, he could have been controlled and may not even have realized that it was happening to him. And that's what is the most horrifying thing, is imagining that maybe you really were under someone else's control the entire time, and you didn't realize that they were doing it to you. How fucked up is that? To find out that you've been manipulated, to come to that sudden horrific realization that none of this was under your control. In a way, your body witnessing yourself being forced to do things that you wouldn't normally do, just like Anduin Wrynn, and it haunts him to the core. It haunts him to the core. Imagine being someone like Sargeras and you're accused of burning thousands of worlds, innumerable worlds, eradicating civilization, species, all this stuff. What if you find out that someone was controlling you and influencing you to do that for eons? I can't imagine. I can't imagine. And he loved life, according to Chronicle, more than anything. He loved it more than anything. He adored watching it flourish. To think about that and then add the War Within cinematic where he says he doesn't use the light anymore in essence, it's because Anduin is horrified, really, by what has happened. He's deeply, deeply scarred. Maybe he found out the light was just using him? No. That's not the point. Guys, it's about a loss of faith. This isn't that complicated. Like, let me clarify. The guy was forced to do horrific things, and his faith is very much being tested because he is concerned that although it was most likely the factor of Arthas Menethil's darkened spirit shard enjoying the pain and suffering that he was causing, Anduin is deeply concerned that he is potentially the one who was kind of enjoying that exhilarating feeling while under the effects of domination. And that's pretty fucking terrifying. It's pretty fucked up. And if Anduin suspects at all, which I don't think he does, that the light was what is why the jailer targeted him, then I don't know. I would understand Anduin being extremely conflicted. Roller Socks, it must be extremely difficult to draw the boundary between which action was of his own will and which action was the result of domination. You're very right, and it's important that you recognize that because that very same conundrum, I think, occurs to Sargeras in Chronicle. There's a whole section about Sargeras isolating himself from everyone else, very similar to how Anduin does, and becoming very depressed, falling into this brooding depression, because he felt that something about the cosmos, something about creation was flawed, something wasn't right. And it was in this weakened, you know, mentally weakened and kind of downtrodden state. I believe it was during this long epoch that's when, it might have been before, but I think it was during this when Sargeras found that darkened world. But actually, I don't think that's true. I think he cleaves that world first. Then he goes back to the Pantheon. They fight, they argue. Then he gets really upset because he's like, they don't understand why I did what I did. I'm getting the fuck out of here. If they're not going to listen to me, I'm fucking getting out of here. So then he isolates himself, falls into this brooding depression, comes to the conclusion that his already existing thoughts that the universe was fatally flawed in some capacity is in fact true, and essentially falls into this concept, this trap of let's purge the cosmos. So in a way, it's very similar to Arthas Menethil. You know, fuck you, Uther, fuck you, Jaina. If you're not gonna listen to me, I'll fucking do it myself. Because I'm the shit, and I'm gonna do it. Right? That's kind of the impression that they give you of like, that's kind of, he just didn't, he realized that they were never gonna see eye to eye. And as a result, he was like, fuck this shit, I'm out of here. Didn't Eltharion also isolate himself, which made him more susceptible to what corrupted him? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And what is Illyria at risk of doing? Isolating herself. And the more she does it, the more susceptible to corruption she will become. That cycle will continue. We have to look to our allies and trust in them. In the case of Sargeras, if it turns out that his very allies were potentially using domination magic on him, I don't necessarily blame him for not wanting to work with them. If it turns out that they're the ones that were controlling him, just like Zoval was being controlled by the Primus and imprisoned by the Primus and co., I feel like Sargeras would be in a kind of a similar situation. That thing has 50 million HP. Holy fucking shit. Thousands of stories. Now they're probably lining some animal's den. The precise, orderly text is too small to read. Yeah, this guy is very interesting. By the Titans, thank you. I don't know what I would have done if I'd lost these. I can finally leave without failing my oath. Right, before we get back to Jaime's, before he gets suspicious, she gets suspicious. We better get back before she gets suspicious. Please don't tell her about any of this. Her duty is to guide and guard me in my role as a compiler. If she knew I was planning to leave, I don't know what she would do. Or about my book, she wouldn't understand. You see why I get Norg vibes from this guy? Karechuck, thank you so much for gifting us up the Shacy. Please don't tell Hymas. Brennick, where were you? Your duty is to rest. All I've ever done is rest. I'm leaving, but I won't abandon my oath. To be fair, if Zal is Lura, Dreadlords would explain how she gets from Argus to Azeroth. I don't know about this Zal is Lura thing. I think Zal being a darkened prime Naru is so much more interesting. Like, just having them harken back to another... Like, no one's gonna remember that. That's the problem I'm seeing here. Is this is like, that's too significant. People aren't gonna remember that. I don't know. Dare FE. Thanks so much for the Prime sub. Did you know compilers are used in programming? Sure did. Brenox seemed troubled lately, fixating on stories about oaths and journeys. I hope the Shadow Vein recitation raises his spirits. Thank you for bringing him back. He always acts strange when we come to Shadow Vein Point, but he seems more out of sorts than usual. Once a year, Brenock and I take the long road through the ringing deeps. Wait, there's a theory Zal's a prime darkened Naru? I mean, yeah, I would think that's, if anything, I don't know if anyone has specifically said that, but that's, if we're gonna go the Naru route, then like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with. You guys can go with whatever you want, but yeah, I'll take that one. I think there's a higher chance of her being a darkened prime Naru than Lura or a Dreadlord, frankly. I think a Koreshi is still very possible, but you know, Once a year, Brannock and I take the long road. Okay, it's my duty to ready the ceremony site. We stop at each outpost, and Brannock tells the residents a story from their past, one they entrusted to him to remember, even when they forget. It's my duty to ready the ceremony site. Would you come with me? I could use the help. This is the thing, is that if he alters the stories, this is so Norg coded to me, dude. We're going to the resuscitation site, Brannock. Try not to wander off. Of course, where would I even go? Kyubi, thanks for gifting 2 subs. The common costume. I'll slip away after the recitation. Is it recitation? Recitation? I don't fucking know. It's easy to vanish in a crowd of earth and enjoying a keg of cinder brew. Recitation? So you go with the hard I on there, like you're saying recite. Recitation. Okay. I think I figured it out, but I can't elaborate because of spoilers. Okay. Well, we'll see as I play this game if I come to the same conclusion or not. Yeah. Have you been to the compiler? I told him about the flare that chipped its teeth on me. Didn't he say he writes the stories down precisely because he's afraid of changing them? Yes, but he says... Well, I got disconnected. He says he comes back up there to add them, but what his issue is that he wants to write stories of his own. So that's the thing. This guy, his charge is to write the stories as they are told. But the thing is that, let me make this very clear. You're relying on one guy to remember it for you and not add or change anything. Not only does he have to actually do that, but then he has to resist the urge to write his own stories and add embellishments or alterations, because that's what writers do. That's what storytellers do. Stories passed down through peoples over generations and generations have slight alterations to them typically. Like, there are things that are gonna change about it, and some of that is based on the perspective of the storyteller. It's not rare, I don't think at all, for there to be additions or embellishments made. So I think that's where I'm taking it, as like, well, if this guy's kind of like Norganon in any sense, then perhaps, his urge to make his own stories, or perhaps even embellish those existing stories, which there's no proof of yet, but altering or embellishing those, it's the same concept. Same concept there. Ask if the miner knows where a spare set of clothes is. It's part of the recitation ceremony. I'd like to collect souvenirs. No time to explain, it's very urgent. Why do you need them? It's part of the ceremony. Oh, in that case, you can find plenty of spares in the top floor of the inn. This would be hell for a creative writer to just have to write factual history. Yeah, poor guy. And maybe it's a reflection of Norganon. Maybe it's... And this is all just speculation, right? But maybe it's more that this guy is different from Norganon because he has the capacity to conceive of his own stories. Maybe if Norganon were the master manipulator behind like the structured, orderly machinations of the Titans, then perhaps this is trying to illustrate that Norganon is incapable of writing an original story. That he doesn't have that creative prowess that something like this free-willed Earthen may have. That maybe he is bound to kind of telling the same story over and over again. I don't know, just a thought. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, like, this guy being a fractal for Norganon, but having a deep desire, and maybe Norganon has this too, to write his own stories, is almost, to me, it's almost like the fractal breaking itself. Not even breaking itself, but it's just breaking because maybe because this guy's exposure to whatever has given them a much more sense of free will and his wanting to go out is essentially something that Norganon doesn't have, which is basically what I said earlier. I'm just kind of repeating myself, but Whereas Norganon perpetuates the cycle, this guy is kind of breaking it. I really wonder, man, I really wonder if the Titans want Azeroth's power, then what they need to do is the right thing, right? For Azeroth and for the people of Azeroth, and not because they want the power, but because it's the right thing to do. Isn't that kind of the theme that we're being shown with Magni and with the dragon aspects, that it's about being willing to lay yourself on the line to save and protect others and like do the right thing, do the heroic thing? And like that's when Azeroth gives you the power? Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like if that's what the Titans want, then similar to the dragon aspects, they're gonna need to do something that proves that they deserve it. And maybe they're incapable. Maybe without like true free will, maybe they're not capable of that. Seems they have more pressing concerns here than cleaning. Could you tidy while I hang the ornaments? Brannock's role isn't easy. He must keep his life simple to keep the stories from being overwritten by his own experiences. See what I was saying, chat? See what I was saying? It's that urge and that risk of him changing it. I swore to watch over him, guide him, care for the parts of his life his oath keeps him from partaking in. Maybe that's why Norganon doesn't feel anything. Maybe he's kept absolutely and utterly passionless because he's not meant to make any alterations to the story at all. And if that's the case, I wonder if he did that to himself, kind of like a Sphene situation. Remember in Final Fantasy XIV? I'm not gonna spoil, but you know what was happening with that if you've watched that, if you've played that. What she was gonna do so that she could carry out the thing, to do the thing. That's pretty crazy. Here we record those lost to the depths. May their names never fade, even as they pass from our memory. Durgar, who plotted the deeps. Karag, taken by stillness. Berthok, the pillar, lost saving others from cave-in. Krenok, swept away by uncharted currents. And Thold, whose pick never dulled. Thold, whose pick never dulled. I think our dwarves are far more free-willing. The chaos comes from that. I would agree. Free will is chaos because free will is basically what allows for, like, I don't think the endless possibilities of the void can even occur if free will isn't a thing. Like, I almost think it's important for free will to happen so that there is possibility. But I don't know. It allows the prospect of good and evil, in my opinion, but also allows the prospect of variation and of change. More than anything, a fluidity to things, right? And predictability to a degree, especially if it repeats itself in patterns in perpetuity. But yeah. I think the juxtaposition of Brannock wanting to maintain his oath, but also finding himself an out to pursue his desires is very interesting. So do I, my friend, so do I. And part of me almost wonders, there's no indication of it yet for like the kind of copied storytelling, as it were. But part of me is wondering if that ties to the Primus somehow. What that means for Norganon. How he could or Eonar. Maybe it's more like that. The concept of who's the one pulling the strings. Eonar being the puppet, Norganon being the puppet master, and through her dreams, through her potentially even command to a degree over the other Titans or influence, perhaps that is how he's doing that, is through someone else. The common costume. Did you find them yet? We gotta get a costume. During this questline with a guy that I think is much like Norganon. I forgot we were getting a costume so that we can blend in. That's so that he can blend in. Thank you. No one should recognize me in these. Oh, Christ. Are you fucking kidding me? He's gonna use a costume? A disguise? He's literally using a disguise so that he can do what he wants? That's fucking crazy. That's fucking crazy. Pyro, can I join the guild even if I'm from OCE? Fuck yeah, you can. Also, I need to give officer to more people. I was just gonna say it seems like they're programmed, but they're awakening to their free will. Yes. Earthen are pre-curse of flesh, right? Technically. I mean, technically yes, but I don't think that's really true. I think that the Earthen were mortals that probably had free will and a deep connection to the earth and potentially the plane of earth itself. Maybe even once trogs that were ordered into something else. I think they were wiped out with re-origination, and I think they were made into Titan Forged. I don't know. I think that's why the memory crystal stuff here is so interesting, because the memories are something I'm relating to mortality and lived experience. I think that's very, I don't know. Then the whole Azeroth free will thing, I really think that many of these, probably all of the Titan Forged races, including Tol'vir, which were unequivocally, inarguably part of the Black Empire. Like, that can literally be proven. The Tol'vir being part of the Black Empire can be proven. Like, there's so many things that they claimed they've done. I just don't believe them. An immortal would probably have more memories. I just think their tendency and trending towards free will is a major indication. And that their memories are not being erased is one of the main reasons. I just feel is like, damn, that really suggests that, like, why would they behave that way? It is either directly a result of interacting with Azeroth or an old god or whatever, but Azeroth, I believe more so directly. But the thing is, like, these new Azerite infused ones, those weren't even a fucking thing, it seems, until Magni. So I don't know if it's exposure to the anomaly or if it is a natural tendency towards free will, because that's what they used to be. Decimus is in the guild now if you want to officer him. Wasn't the Curse of Flesh supposed to make Keepers and Titanforge more susceptible to corruption by the old gods, and now we're seeing the Skarden? I mean, yes, but the Skarden, they're not turning to flesh. They're just becoming void corrupted robots whose free will is being leveraged to corrupt them. So the free will is necessary for the corruption of the void, it seems, I think. So the flesh is seemingly another form of free will. But again, tell me I'm wrong here, but this seems to indicate that void energy and what it does in terms of how it corrupts and how it affects things is still different than the old gods. Because to me, this is like the old gods' nightmare corruption versus the void corruption that went into the dream. Two very different results. And on the other side, maybe it's because they're given flesh and form, I don't know. On the other side, you have kind of the same thing, where you have the Titan Forged, some of which were their matrices destabilized, which led them to turn to flesh. And then you have those that are given free will, but they don't have flesh. So yes, I agree with you, Demaro, that their free will is what's making them susceptible to corruption by the void. I agree with you. Because when something is bound to follow a specific set of commands and follow a very strict edict, that doesn't really provide much breathing room at all for the void. That probably wouldn't help them very much. They need things that are capable of different thoughts. My theory of the Dreadlords being Void Lords is that they form is stunted by the order from the Titans in the cosmos. Because if the Void Lords aren't contained in some form, what stops them from just coming to Azeroth without Xal'atath's help? They need enough void energy to release their true form. That their form is stunted by the order from the Titans in the cosmos. Like, the order in the cosmos is almost like a suppression field so to speak. The corruption of the Skardin's very different to the corruption of flesh. I fully agree. And one is overtly and clearly void, and one is overtly and clearly old gods. Allegedly. I just think that they're... I could be wrong, chat, but does it not seem to some degree that they're trying to build a little bit of a barrier between void and old gods? And, like, flesh and free will? And, like, really getting into that, it seems like here. Like, what is it that is granting free will? Is there multiple different things that can? And given that the old gods seem to kind of give this fleshy corruption and the void doesn't, the void seems to strip away your flesh and integrate you as energy, the void seems rather different than the old gods. I mean, I've been saying this for literally 10 fucking years, that they do not seem to be what we are supposed to believe they are. Are you suggesting the old gods were corrupted like the Skardin? They aren't sources of void? Yes. Brenox seemed troubled lately. Fixating on stories about oaths and journeys. Okay, Brenox usually seems more excited for a recitation. Thank you. I hope you'll join us for the recitation when the time comes. A sip of cinder. Now there's one last thing we need. It wouldn't be a proper recitation ceremony without mead. Characters screaming. However, Earthkeeper Zerk tells me the last couple deliveries of cinder brew haven't arrived. It seems the local flayers in the Rumbling Wastes have a taste for it and raid the shipments. Here, take a spare keg. See what you can recover from the flayers. Okay. How are you enjoying Paladin? I mean, so far I just shit on anything in front of me. It's great. Oh, I'm sorry. I was certain they were on the first one after the island and you have seen them. No, I don't think so, man. I don't think so. I didn't intently read everything that you just said because as I saw that it may have been spoilers, I just kind of stopped reading. So I can't really verify if what you're saying is correct, but I'm just trying to be careful because I haven't seen any massive roots. I don't think. Don't think I've seen that. By the way, why do you think the Void Lords need to be summoned? Because Koresh got consumed, but after that Dementius just went away. It seems like Dementius lost strength because otherwise he could just continue, right? Yeah, I mean, they have to consume matter and energy. And often when you summon void beings into reality, they don't want to be there. Like Void Walkers tell you to send them back and shit. So they say they don't like this place, stuff like that. So I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not so sure that the Void Lords actually intend to do what we are led to believe they intend to do. I think the only reason why they'd want to be in reality is to consume the essence of a world soul. And I don't really know what that would do. I guess my first question would be like, would that cause a huge explosion of light? Or like what? Would that create a big chaotic explosion of chaos? Like what's the result of that? Like, I don't, if it is a void titan, I just don't know, dude. I just don't, that just kind of seems like corny and weird to me. I don't know. Maybe they just want to integrate the power of Void into Azeroth, and maybe it's not like a complete consumption of it or something, you know? Maybe they're just trying to get their seat at the table, so to speak. I just don't know. I just don't know. It seems more like there might be entities who want to use and leverage the Void Lords for their great evils, regardless of whether or not the Void Lords actually give a fuck about that. Void Lords ain't void gods. Yeah, we can have a bunch of fucking discussion about the use of certain words for, you know, for hours if we want to, but at the end of the day, we can't really factually say anything about it, so we need a little more clarification on the structure and hierarchy of void entities so that we can better understand what it actually means. And again, there are interpretations that say that Dreadlords are Void Lords. And frankly, considering that the Dreadlords are directly the source of the story about the Void Lord Old God conspiracy that we all perpetuate, they are literally its source as far as I understand it, then, you know, Dreadlords have to stay on the table as potential actual Void Lords. Well, but, you know, I just... What we learned about them in Shadowlands seems to kind of indicate something else, so I don't know. I'm like way off track over here, by the way. I just killed all sorts of shit. Thank you. The miners will appreciate this. I hope the flayers weren't too much trouble. That should do. Brennock, everything's ready. Brennock sighs. Yes, no sense in waiting any longer. Boom, boom, boom. Lurky, thanks so much for the 7-month resub. Welcome back. Grissolenal, thanks so much for the prime as well. Welcome. Maybe the Dreadlords came to Azeroth first and corrupted the old gods and then told the Sargeras about Azeroth? I have no idea. I genuinely don't know. We're gonna find out, though. One last story. Well, it's time. I'll be holding the recitation at the mine entrance. I'll see you there, though don't feel obligated to stay the whole time. I'll leave my book for Hymas to find. She'll take care of it. After the ceremony, I'd like to say goodbye properly. Meet me at the bridge outside of town. I'll head there after recitation. This honestly gives like Bilbo Baggins vibes for some reason to me. Go on, you two. I have a few things to take care of. I'll catch up. Taka, thanks for subbing with a tier 1. Well, this is it. The last story I'll tell for some time. I don't see Hymas. She doesn't always attend. Tides know she's heard my stories plenty. Still, I'd hoped, but she wouldn't know this. But she wouldn't know this would be my last recitation. Listen to Brennock's last recitation. I come to you with a story from this very mine. A story of two miners, Durgar and Karag. Side by side, they served their oaths for centuries, but in time, Karag felt the call of the unbound. Her pick grew heavy, and her thoughts grew heavier still. She ceased work and barely spoke. Durgar saw her friend's pain and was desperate to help, but all she knew was mining. So she swore upon her oath she would not return to the surface until she found something so incredible it would shake off Karag's doubts. For many years she searched. True to her promise, she never left the mine. One day, in the fathomless depths, she found her prize. A peerless gem, so beautiful it could cut through all of Karag's doubts. Joyful, she ran back to Karag. Do you know what Karag said when Durgar returned with the gem? Nothing. Karag had long since passed into stillness. They say all the strength went out of Durgar, her body so worn it had only been her oath keeping her upright. When they tried to comfort her, she shattered. She was a mere shell of stone. Remember, an oath is a heavy thing. If we are not careful, we will buckle under that weight. Brennock whispers, I'll find somewhere quiet to change. Meet me at the bridge outside of town. There you two are. Anshira, why are you alone? Where's Brennock? Of course I know Brennock wants to leave. He's not half as subtle as he thinks. I knew Brennock was acting odd. Then one of the miners mentioned you'd borrowed a spare set of clothes. That and his strange mood. Well, it wasn't hard to guess that he planned to leave. I expected him to come this way, though. Have you seen him? This is the only road to the elevator. He should have been here by now. Unless he didn't take the road. He wouldn't want to be seen. He has no idea how dangerous the deeps can be. We have to find him. Oh, fuck. What is that? Oh, Grimlurk. We gotta rescue Brennock from Grimlurk. Come on, get out of here before more of them turn up. Doofus. You can't stop me. You shale-headed schist seam. I'm not here to stop you. I'm coming with you. You... What? Oh, I've been so foolish. Oh, shit. On his own for 5 minutes and see what happens. At least traveling with him won't be boring. Interesting. Hi, Maz. A female Earthen goes with him. Guthan, you see this? Hmm. 1.5 levels to my third 80's done. I'm feeling it. Not rushing either. 1 ult per zone and MSQ plus some delves and dungeons. Nice. Huh. If only he told me sooner. Stone-headed oaf. But if he's set on leaving, he'll need a guide. I'm not sure he knows how to put one foot in front of the other on his own. His chronicle is already on a rook, headed to Gundergaz. She calls it a fucking chronicle? Dude, slap me in the fucking face. Are you shitting me right now? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, what? Thank you for helping him. They'll take care of his stories, at least until he's had his fill of his own. My oath is, and always was, to care for him. I can't do that if I keep him down here. This could just be nothing but Painted Contagion. Thank you for the 2 gifted subs. Thank you guys so much. Tired of rest. Thank you, Anshara. So where to first? First, I just want to feel the sun. After that, who knows? I want to feel the sun. Look, in my head, I cannot not think about the Emerald Dream and all of the allusions to the sun there. It is unfucking real how many of them there are. But I digress.